Good morning, everyone. Appreciate everybody that had the opportunity to join today. Wanted to have a quick informational session about just conquering digital clutter. My name is Brian Bauman. I'm a process analyst here on our Image One Automate team. And the goal of today is kind of uncovering what exactly this digital clutter is. And I think a lot of organizations have different ideas as to what this is in their world. So I want to share a little bit about what we've most frequently seen, why digital clutter is such a big pain point today. And then I'll close things up with a brief demonstration as to some different ways that we can start taming the digital clutter and taking small steps into a more streamlined future. So, uh, kicking things off, what is digital clutter? Again, I think everybody has their own idea of what this is today. And first of all, maybe it's not even digital clutter. Maybe it's still paper clutter, which sometimes that's a better case because you haven't gotten into this chaos yet that is the world of digital. So don't want to lose sight of the still paper clutter that's out there, but digital clutter now has turned into emails, tons and tons of email communications back and forth. I know this resonates with absolutely everybody out there today in regards to how you interact with people through the organization. SharePoint documents getting shared out in SharePoint. Again, this ends up becoming the wild, wild west because documents can just be stored in so many different categories. You got your ERPs out there, of course, SAP being one of them, but you name the ERP, a lot of documents get stored out there. That's where we historically see data should be living, but the documents don't have a lot of times a lot of value in there. Your CRMs that are out there, again, every CRM, there's documents behind that. OneNote, or maybe, you have these file structures that are just subfolders upon subfolders upon subfolders, and it ends up becoming a needle in the haystack trying to find any kind of documents that you have out there today. And it just becomes painful. There's no real structure behind it. Some studies have shown that at least four of these are being used across most organizations today, which is a lot. Where do you go to find the right information, and how do you do that efficiently? And it ends up just becoming an endless search, and it's this document chaos and data chaos that is just strewn about organization and platforms and different applications. So why is this on the rise so much today? It's something that, again, I think every organization can resonate with in some way, but what we see in the big tipping point was right around 2020. Something big kind of happened around there. I think COVID, of course, being that big driver of everyone suddenly needing to go digital. But what we hear very, very frequently is, yeah, we went digital, so we're all set. But just because you went digital does not mean that you changed any of the processes behind those documents. So a lot of times that pain actually got amplified of, okay, we used to have a little bit of control over these documents when we were in the office, or when we had things in paper form, but now it's turned into um, you know 7 copies saved in seven different places, or PDFs being stored in emails, and just not the right processes behind the actual documents. So just because you went digital does not mean that the process got better, and sometimes it maybe even got more painful. Another big piece that we saw right around that time is that increase in remote and hybrid work, and that's a great thing in so many situations. But what we started seeing from that point was communication started getting fractured. You don't have this seamless communication back and forth. You have these email chains. You have all these things going into, okay, I stored this document out over here, but someone else is looking for the document over there. So that communication piece just kind of went out the window. These shared drives became a dumping grounds for documents, whether it's SharePoint, whether it's still your network structure. Just because it's in the cloud, again, does not necessarily mean that it's efficient, because so many of these applications just become dumping grounds of where documents can go. I'll just go store a document out there, and I'll put my own naming convention behind it, or where I think I'll find it next. And I'm guilty of this too. I still have documents out there that I look back on, I'm like, well, why did I store this out here? Oh, shoot, I dragged and dropped this one in the wrong folder, and that's why I couldn't find it. So that was a huge piece of, people just trying to find the most efficient, what they thought that was the most efficient piece for storing these kind of documents and data. And then, again, approvals. being somewhat controlled prior, moving to these 10 message threads or having these Teams communications or all these different applications again that you can communicate through. But now people are doing things different where one person's communicating this way, another person's communicating this way, and that document is living somewhere in between, and we don't necessarily know where. So that's been a huge piece as to why this is on a rise and why it's so painful. So getting into some of the pain pieces behind it, like what does this mean? What are some of the stats behind it? And these are some pretty serious numbers when we get down to it. So 37 hours per month on average is what an employee spends searching for just information. Doesn't matter what it is, whether it's a contract, an invoice, receipt, whatever that is. Um, all these different places of where you can find it. No, there's no structure behind it. So it just becomes a huge waste of time. 82% of employees, which is just an astronomical number, say that poor information management is hurting their productivity. So people know this. 4 out of 5 people know that, yeah, maybe this could be better, or shoot, maybe this isn't the best way to go about managing these documents and data today. So if everybody knows it, well, why aren't we doing anything about it? And the last one here, 47% of their employees said that companies' digital organization systems are not easy and effective to navigate, which goes into just, okay, what is the right application to use for something like this? So that's what I'm going to get into a little bit here is how we can go about dealing with these kind of things just better. Um, and what we're going to do is kind of flip the script a little bit in regards to how historically things get managed to how I think a better way overall is doing this. So typically what happens is a document goes through a process, whatever that is. Maybe it's one approver, maybe it's 100 approvers. It doesn't matter, but that document gets stored at the end. And that I think is the biggest problem is that ingestion point is at the very tail end of all the things that need to happen with those. So where we're flipping the script saying, hey, let's get these documents into a central repository where there's no questions asked. These are where these business critical documents live. And from there, once we have it stored, getting that data into good, clean, usable formats, and then going through all the processes that you need to after the fact. When we do that, we keep that control because we know where that document lives instantly, and that document's not going to leave that application because it's started there. And that's where the end users now can see these massive productivity gains of I know where I'm going to go find it, and I have the right notifications instantly when I need to take action on these things, and the right tools to actually be able to recall these documents because there's no time, there's no value in the time spent searching for documents ever. It's just an unaudited piece of most organizations, and it's just the way that you've always done things. So I'll just go about searching for things this way, and it just bogs people down. So from here, documents can come in all different sources, all different ways. You're still going to get paper documents in. Absolutely. We still need to get them digital somehow. So great. We can have a button set up at your device and we can monitor those folders, automatically ingest them into the system. There's a full integration with Outlook and emails, so you can store them right from your email, get them into that central repository. Do not let things live in your email because everybody knows how painful it is to try and go and recall something that happened a few weeks ago, and you know those communications happen, but for some reason when you search in Outlook, it's gone. Or in this case, I have a couple documents sitting out here just on a network structure, and I'm just going to come in and drag and drop them in. And the first thing that happens when we get these in here is the system starting to read this instantly, getting these key data points off that are going to flow downstream for decisions or for payments or whatever those pieces may be, but getting that data into a good, clean, usable format. Because once you have that data clean, the rest of it can flow. The document is the document. What we really care about is the data on the document. Those are the things that decisions need to be made off of. So great, keep the document in here. Let the system start working on the pieces that need the human intervention on. And from here, I can go ahead and store these documents in here. And you can see here's all these data points that a decision could be made off of, or a payment needs to be made off of, or we can get this pushed into other systems while the document still lives in this system. So I can go ahead and store this. But the control here now comes over the ease of searchability and the ease of keeping track of where these documents sit in a given workflow, whether that's as simple as a store and retrieve, and I'll show an example here in a second of recalling these documents instantly, or a decision needs to be made on it. So if I go into my task list here, I can see, hey, I have this document that I stored out here, and I can now make decisions on it. Again, the control is still there. The document's already been stored in the system, but I'm just going to go ahead and complete this process so we can push this into our ERP to actually be paid. And those are things we can also look at streamlining. That digital or the data clutter is another big piece of that. Great. Now we have good, clean, usable data, and that data can be leveraged across all different systems. Hit confirm, and it falls off the list instantly. And you have this audit trail instantly behind the scenes, keeping track of what kind of things happened on these documents too. When they're in different applications or even just network structures, and there's no audit trail to see who went and took action on a document. There's no audit trail to see who viewed this document last. All of those things are so valuable at the end of the day when you're trying to understand what happened in the past with this document. Another big piece here is going to be keeping track of statuses of documents. So again, most documents have a life cycle. Maybe that's just a simple store and we need to keep this for 7 years and now we need to push it off a list. Or we need to keep track of where it sits in the status of approvals or expirations. So you have contracts that might be sitting out there that, okay, how are you going to manage those? Where are they living today? Are you controlling them in an Excel spreadsheet? There's better ways to do that and have leveraged data points to be able to pull those things off. And last piece here, again, keeping track of the status of invoices, different document types, and being able to escalate where needed too. Typically, it's just human time to escalate these things. But if it gets past a certain timeline in a given workflow, great. Now we can take action on those documents and escalate decisions and get that control back over the documents and data so we can push it into other systems. But at the end of the day, a lot of times it's just storage and retrieval of these documents. So one thing I'm going to show really, really quick here is just the quick ability to search for documents. And you can see I have tons of index fields here that I can search off of, which at the end of the day, yes, I absolutely could do, but the situations where I'm trying to recall something, and the example I always use is we bought iced tea from a company and I cannot remember who we bought it from, but I'm trying to figure out who. So somebody's going and asking a question internally, hey, who did we buy this from last? And they're having to go back into their file folders because they don't have the right information. Well, I'm just hitting a full text search here, and this is going to automatically run all this documents in the system. And you can see here I have a couple of invoices from WB Mason. And when I click on that, it pulls it up automatically, highlights for me exactly where it's finding it on the page. So that searching time goes down an enormous amount at the end of the day when you can just have these quick controls over these kind of documents. And one even cooler way is, again, email example here, somebody emailing back and forth saying, hey, do we have an invoice and packing slip for PO this number? All I'm doing is highlighting over this text field, and I have a predefined key combination where I can just hit and it executes a search instantly. I don't even need to hop back into the system to execute the search. I can have it pull back for me all those document types associated with that PO number and now see very quickly. And it looks like, hey, yep, absolutely. I have an invoice in and a packing slip in. Great. Now I can answer that question and move on with my day. Versus just getting bogged down trying to figure out, okay, where was the invoice stored, who stored the packing list, or is that somewhere else, is that in a different application? Keeping that control is really, really key in so many of these situations. So again, this is a big topic to tackle, and there's so much value that can be gained from it because there's so much value that can be gained from just being digital in general. But again, just because you're digital doesn't mean that your processes are good and streamlined and efficient. And that's where so much of that time suck comes into the picture of how can we get more valuable time back into the day. So again, looking at some of these stats here, big numbers, but where do you start? So what we ask is, when did your organization start going digital? A lot of times you kind of trace it back to that point as to when communication started getting fractured, when things become inefficient, when people are starting to ask questions of, okay, where is this? And that's where we can find that kind of starting point and start peeling back the layers as to where it could have started and now what steps we can take forward. But so many organizations are far down the digital path, and that's fine. That's no problem. What we always preach to every single person is, let's start small. Let's start whiteboarding some ideas, find some good wins of areas, departments, processes where we can look at getting some of that control back, getting rid of that digital clutter, getting rid of that data clutter, and keep control in a centralized repository where you have all the control in the world over those documents. So all these start with a conversation, understanding where that pain lies today, having meaningful discussions internally and with our team. And that's where we want to continue to just collaborate and be that resource for you. So hope this is beneficial. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out. Really appreciate you joining and hope you got some good insights out of this. Hope you have a great day. Thanks, everyone.